So, good morning or good night, depending on where you are in the world. And welcome to another interview of the Shield Dude on a Couch. I'm your host, Hector. And tonight I have from the band Derision called, I have, the main songwriter, and he plays different instruments. So, I think, how are you tonight, man?
Good, man. Good to see you. Thanks for we were just talking before we joined. I'm in Chicago
You're
and
in.
we're about to get like a crazy storm here. And when I've come to Puerto Rico, I just love the weather there. So I'm kind of jealous of you in San Juan right now.
Yeah, yeah. No, I have a friend in Chicago, and yeah, I don't. If I visit Chicago, I'll visit in the summertime.
Yeah, no, you gotta do that. Yeah, it's probably like June before it gets like crazy muggy and stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, otherwise doing good, man. We put the EP dropped Friday, getting a great reaction. We were, dropping singles and stuff, for the past few months, and excited to have it out sharing with the world.
Yeah, and I listened to it, and I think if you're a fan of like industrial metal, especially Ministry, there's a lot of like Ministry
Oh yeah.
on it.
Yeah.
You will enjoy it, but also, Dave, I think you're singing. I don't know why it reminded me of Rob Zombie.
Yeah, I've heard that. I'm well, I can't sing pretty, but I sing loud. I guess is what it comes down to. But yeah, I definitely a lot of Rob Zombie influences. At heart, I'm like an unashamed metal guy, and one of my heroes is actually probably Rob's too. Is Lemmy Kilmister? Just that guttural Motorhead thing. So I think a lot of it comes from that. Growing up, my heroes were like James Hetfield, Lemmy Kilmister. These guys are that guttural thing, and yeah, it works well for me.
Yeah. So for people that don't know the Derision called, give us, like a maybe a 5 minute history lesson of the band.
Yeah, well, my history is when I come from kind of the Iowa metal scene. I took a long break from music when I moved to Chicago and spent a lot of years in the advertising industry and did a lot of the marketing we did. Some fun, some cool, but some of it started to trend into kind of manipulating people and using their some of the political things that were going on in America at the time, and well, in Puerto Rico as well. And I saw the some of the kind of overstimulation were things that I kind of bothered me, and I wanted to comment on. And I thought about my kids growing up in a world where media is going to be kind of used to kind of wind them up and piss them off more than it is to inform them. And that was kind of the basis for the project. And I started out just kind of making demos for a few years, and through doing that ran into the guys at Glitch Mode Recordings, which is a sort of an industrial artist collective here in Chicago. And that's where I met Sean Payne, who I collaborate and do a lot of the, he's very looms very, very large on all this. And that brings us to today. And through, Mercenary Notes Part 1 and Part 2 are songs that we've worked on over the course of the last 5 years. We brought in a number of collaborators. We're very lucky to work with, folks, you mentioned Ministry. Well, Chris Connolly sang on part one, which was awesome. Reeves Gabrels from The Cure and David Bowie's band plays a lot of guitar solos and stuff on this EP and the one before. And then Justin Broderick from Godflesh has done some amazing remix work. So yeah, it's been I love collaborating with people. I really learned that in the last 5 years. I was kind of this lone wolf guy for a long time, and then just in the last, like I said, 5 years, starting to connect with more of the industrial community has been a ton of fun, and that's kind of what brings Derision Cult to where it is. Did I go 5 minutes yet, or
I
do
don't
I?
know. I,
Well, what I was going to tell you, a lot of people have asked where that name comes from, and for me, there was that movie called The Room. I don't know if you remember that, but it came out in like 2008, I want to say, and it was so bad people liked it, and it created like this buzz where, yeah, it was just a really terrible movie, but I remember reading a reviewer that was saying that there was this cult of derision around this movie, and I thought that was such an interesting thing where people came together because they were so mad about something, or just hated it so much. And I thought that's a really interesting concept. And it's a lot of what some of the campaigns I was starting to run that would kind of push people's buttons on political hot button issues, and it would get them wound up and charged. But what they're really doing is selling you razors or selling you shoes and things like that. And I just that was kind of the basis for it. But yeah.
In a nutshell. But it's pretty interesting because, right here in Puerto Rico now, we're almost like the states where you're driving down the highway and they have like these electronic billboards everywhere. So
Oh yeah.
you feel like every time that you're getting out of the house, they're selling you everything. They're selling in the phone. If you say something, then you get notifications. So it's kind of tiresome.
Yeah. Well, I remember, like I said, I was in the ad agent or in the ad business kind of globally for a long time. In fact, I've been down to Puerto Rico with OMD used to have a office there. I don't know if they still do, but anyways, I think the thing that really you're right. I think we get exposed to a lot more information. The average person by the time they're 18 is going to have more just stimulus than somebody in their whole lifetime 40 years ago. I mean, that's a big jump, and it has to do with what you're saying. Like, we have screens, more billboards, just over, just over stimulus. And some of that stuff, one of the stories, it inspired a track called Bastards of the World, which is, it's on part one. But um one time I was contacted in some consulting work I do to help a company sell. They wanted to market an AR-15 specifically for teenagers and kids, which sounds crazy on the face of it. I'm like, what? And sorry, what's that?
What's an AR-15?
Oh, it's a rifle. It's an assault
Yeah.
rifle. And
Uh,
well, now the reason they were doing this, or the real reason was, it's actually a gun that was designed for like the grandfather to teach the grandkid how to shoot a gun, on a farm and stuff like that. But they didn't want to position it that way. They wanted to wind up gun lobbyists and gun control people as much as they could. They wanted me to go and get this message about these idiots trying to sell this AR-15 to, the Rachel Maddows of the world and the writing rooms and all these places. And I would be doing it through digital ads. So I'd make sure that these people would see it on their screens. The real reason they were selling that gun was because they knew when these people get really pissed off and that's all you see on the news is, what's the world coming to when, people are selling guns like this, they sell more bullets. And that's really what the goal was to get people going, oh shit, if there might be some, I better stock up on ammunition. That was a really pivotal moment for me because, first of all, I think that's pretty tasteless to market a gun that way. But also I thought, it's important people are aware when they're getting messages. A lot of things aren't really intended to make you think. They're intended to make you feel something, get a reaction. And I think that's so prevalent now. And it's always kind of been in marketing that, hey, if you drink this beer, the hot girl will like you, or if you use this, drive this car, people think you're more sophisticated. That's one thing. But when you start treading into like hot button political issues, which I think we've started to do in the last 10 years, I think it leads to more anxiety and mental health problems because a lot of people, if they're not aware this stuff's going on, it can, I think it can really do a lot of damage to mental health. And one of the things, you mentioned kind of in Puerto Rico, how you're seeing the billboards. I have a daughter who's 11 now, and I think the younger generations are evolving because I think their bullshit detectors are getting better and better than maybe yours and mine are. And that really encourages me. I think my daughter is more willing to kind of go, wait a minute, is this thing trying to get her eyes out of me, But the news has really gotten that way. And those are all things that are really important for me to talk about in our tracks.
No, it's good. It's good to talk about those stuff. I think it maybe we're like in the same age group. I remember when you would get like in the movie theater, ads for smoking. The commercials for smoking. You had the cowboy, or you
Oh
had
yeah, Joe Camel. I remember him.
young and hip. Obviously, there's no more commercials for smoking, but yeah, look, I just think like everything's so digital. So for example, if you see Blade Runner today, it's not as shocking because we're like living in it. Maybe
Yeah.
because remember Blade Runner, like there were
Oh sure.
yeah, like very digital stuff and stuff like that.
I think of Blade Runner and I think of remember RoboCop, all the commercials in that were so
Oh,
like over the top. And some of the insanity of that always, when I think of old 80s movies that kind of were a little on the nose today, I think of those too.
oh yeah, I remember the first one, the only one that's good.
Yeah. The second had some moments, but yeah, I kind of checked out at the third.
Yeah. So this EP has some like different sounding type of songs. So for example, Warning Signs, that one I was reading that's very heavily influenced by Jesus, I think Hot Rod Bed by Ministry. So tell me a little bit about Warning Signs and what's out.
Yeah, so that was actually one of the later tracks that we worked on. And it goes over great live. It's a really fun one to play live. That's another one that we invited Reeves Cabrels to lay down a crazy guitar solo on. So that was a lot of fun to have him on there. And we made a really kind of wild animated video for it too. That's for us has gotten a lot of views, but it's sort of like our take on Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas meets Martini Ranch. And but it was fun to make. But yeah, the song kind of has a bit of that old kind of rockabilly vibe. Ministry, Revolting Cocks, there's some Sister Machine Gun things, hearkening to our Chicago roots that really kind of leaned in on that. Thematically, the song is sort of teeters on, it's sort of picking up where Mercenary Part 1 left off. The actual title, which, I've mentioned this in a couple interviews, but the title actually was inspired by, so my brother was a special forces, Navy special forces officer, deployed in Iraq twice, in Afghanistan 3 times. And he tells this story about how there was an unnamed, I'm probably not supposed to say his name, so I won't, but a very famous Hollywood producer. This is in like the early 2000s, like right when that Afghanistan war started picking up. He made a movie that, has since come out, but he wanted to kind of do a ride along and kind of see firsthand what some of these guys were doing, raiding caves and raiding the Taliban. And so he got permission to actually kind of ride along a little bit with some of this stuff, which the SEALs and, the Navy SEALs and stuff who were involved in those missions were it was kind of annoying to them to have this guy there. But the way it works is they were in Kabul and, raiding out these high ranking Taliban people. And there's a safe house that they're, going to raid and go get this high value target. And they did. And it turned into a big kind of firefight. This is a thing my brother was on. Now aftermath, that's when this producer came, because then it's kind of like a crime scene, just like here in Puerto Rico or in the US. After something like that happens, same thing in war, like, forensic people come in and they kind of figure out what happened and all that. And that's where this guy showed up. Well, it's a tiny little house this happened in, so there's a lot of shooting at close range and stuff, so the bodies are pretty mangled. And the guy that they were there to get, so this producer comes in, kind of sees everything, and you could tell he's a little like, oh, this is way more than I this is a little realer than I expected.
What
Well,
the fuck, man?
What's that?
It's like a war. Like,
Yeah. Well, anyway, so the story, one of the guys on my brother's unit, they did, they ended up killing the guy they were there to see, and he, basically they shot him in this fight, they shot him right in the face with the 50 calibers. So you imagine what that does to a person's head. But they bring this guy down and kind of put him on a table, like, and the guy, tells this director, well, this is who we were here to get, and lays him down. The guy sees his face all, and just immediately runs out and starts puking. And my brother, the guy in my brother's unit says, is that real enough for you yet? And that's where I got the chorus line for warning signs. These warning signs are getting real enough yet. And I felt like that was well, it felt pretty apt for where we're at right now. So bit of a left from stuff, but that story always stuck with me. So I want it.
I wonder if that's from that Zero Dark 30 movie, because I remember that movie, which was the one that the story about, like, they get Osama bin Laden.
Oh, where they went and got bin Laden?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. Well, it might have been. This would have happened before bin Laden was killed. Like,
Yeah.
this event. So I don't know if it was that or,
There's
but
just movies. Maybe it was Black Hawk Down. I don't know. So many movies that.
yeah, but it was kind of one of those things where, like, the real thing is it was, they were kind of annoyed he was there, and then
Yeah.
he comes and
Maybe, maybe he didn't think it through of what he was getting into.
yeah, like, this is not Hollywood, son. This is the real thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When there's like a war or bombs being thrown in places, and you have those reporters, I'm thinking, do they draw straws? I'm like, who's going to be?
Yeah, right.
Like, because I wouldn't go like, yes, I want to be where they're shooting and throwing bombs near me. Hell no.
Well, I think there's probably a thrill seeker. I mean, some people are
I
like
want
to
to
live on adrenaline and stuff, but
studio. Because also you have the weatherman that does it from the studio, and you have the people that they throw right in the hero.
yeah, right.
And
Yeah, the one
here in the danger.
catch a duck in the face.
Yeah, it's crazy, but it makes for good TV.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, so that song is pretty cool. That's a
Thanks,
cool.
man.
I also love. I thought Radiation Blues is an interesting one because it mixes blues with industrial. So
Yeah.
a little bit about the backstory.
Well, yeah, it's funny you say that about blues. That the title idea actually came to me by, another fellow Chicago industrial guy, Jim Marcus, who's singer of Die Warzone and Go Fight. We were sitting around one night and he suggested, you just something blues, and I thought that was cool. But that track is it's kind of a sequel of sorts to one that we have on Mercenary Part 1 called Slaves Rebuild. And that track, kind of the same sort of thing, where it's sort of an everyman thing, but that track so it was meant to kind of be kind of thematically tied to that, and they're kind of the same sort of vibe. We invited, again, Reeves Gabrels plays lead guitar on that. But I was really inspired by Tom Waits on that one. It's I'm a huge Tom Waits fan, and I just love especially some of those kind of spoken word things that he did. So I really wanted to bring that into an industrial setting, and I still do. I tell Sean all the time, like, that's sort of a style that I'd like to do more of. But we did very consciously. It's funny you say that about blues, because we very, very consciously thought about that, because we're very proud of our Chicago roots, and being Chicago, this is where Wax Tracks and kind of, you talked about Ministry. I mean, at the end of the day, they are a Chicago band, and
Chicago is for a music, but a lot of industrial music has come from Chicago. So yeah,
that's right. Well, we think of, Wax Tracks kind of really blew up here. And so a lot of it was a real hub, and we take a lot of pride in that heritage. But the other thing is Chicago's Chicago blues is a big staple of our heritage here, and that track, but then also Joker's Wild and Kings Are Dead. We very deliberately structured that like a Buddy Guy song, like with the call and response with the guitars, and that was very, very intentional too. So we those two tracks in particular, we very consciously did think about, how could we incorporate some blues characteristics to them. And a lot of it had to do with, we wanted those tracks to reflect our Chicago roots. The whole album, we kind of have a saying that and it's funny, we're talking right now because it's kind of cold and shitty here in Chicago and you're in Puerto Rico, and we really wanted these songs to sound gritty, like have sort of a kind of tough urban city feel to them, because that's kind of what Chicago is. It's a tough old town, and a lot of that I'd like to think shows through. His last saturation on the final mix and everything.
Yeah, no, it shows through. So I want to show the artwork of the EP.
Oh yeah, I got it here too.
Oh,
should I hold up the screen?
let me. Oh, show it to the screen.
Yeah, hey.
Yeah, you can tell that it's pretty like industrial thing. So tell me a little bit about the artwork. So I'm gonna show it now on the full screen for people.
Yeah, if you open the gatefold, it's got all there's a whole cityscape here.
Oh,
Well, it's a continuation of that's what yeah. This was designed by Jim Marcus, Die Warsaw singer. He's a very kind of a very renowned artist here in Chicago. Does a lot of visual things, and Jim's been involved with us for a few years now. And when we talked about when we started talking about the songs, and he also comes from the advertising world, so it was really fun to kind of bounce some of these ideas. But he knew that we wanted to have that gritty city feel to it. Mercenary Part One is kind of that is a more kind of raw view of that same thing. And Part Two, you could see that hand, and that had to do with a lot of the organic elements and more. And this was very, very conscious thinking, but the tracks on Part Two are a little more refined. There's a little more kind of sarcasm in them and things like that. And so there's a bit more of a human element. And so we want to kind of have that represented, kind of the visuals of it. And so that's kind of the genesis for how we design the art that way. But yeah, it definitely kind of goes alongside and fits with part one, or with the first part. So if you hold them up together, it looks kind of like a complete body of work.
yeah, that's really awesome. And when you were working on this, did you always envision of doing this as a two-part EP?
No, originally when I came to Sean with demos, I had 10 tracks, and the plan was like put an album out. But as we pretty quickly into them, it was his idea. He thought, especially because they're going to be the first things Derision Cult would release through glitch mode, that rather than kind of like, here's a full album, let's do it in EPs. Part of that's just because full lengths for industrial music like this, especially for newer acts, is it's a lot to ask people to sit and listen to. And the other reason we broke it up is because some of the songs live in kind of the same sonic space. And like, for example, Radiation Blues and Slaves Rebuild, which, having those on the same album would feel a little redundant. So it just made more sense to give them space that way. So we ended up writing a couple new tracks for Part Two: Warning Signs, Where Are You Now, and Radiation Blues. But no, it was the original plan was to do them together, and then it became apparent it would be a better experience to do them separately. We put Part One out in December of 2022. And then there was some things that kind of happened over the last couple of years. We did do a giant remix album, and there was some things with there was a pretty bad car accident Sean had gotten in that kind of sidelined everything for a little while. And then I had an incident where a buddy of mine was murdered, leaving
Wow.
leaving a skinny puppy show. And so we kind of had some just kind of having to deal with that stuff. So um, that kind of set us back a little bit in terms of releasing them. The original plan was like do one year and one the next, but we're here now, and I think we've come out the other end stronger. So despite some tragedies.
No, that sucks. Coming out of a show, like having a good time, to being a tragedy. That always, yeah, that always reminds me. I don't know. Was it 10 years ago where that massacre happened in France, where they, yeah, where some people shoot some people in
Yeah,
the,
the Eagles of Death Metal show. Yeah,
yeah, which
yeah,
is like, it's very scary because you could, I'm like, that could have been me, like watching a show and just minding my,
yeah.
all of a sudden things like that happen. So I want to ask you about another track on the record that's more to the end, and it's Abdication Day. Tell me a little bit about that one.
That was actually the first song we worked on, believe it or not. So it predates everything. That was a riff that I demoed years ago, but that track, because that's the last one before it goes into the remixes.
It's
That's probably my favorite one to play live, just because it's pretty high energy, and it moves pretty fast. It's an intense one to sing because it gets up there at that's about as high as my Rob Zombie register goes, But ton of fun to sing. But that track started life as I was having a conversation with my stepson on a flight back from London years ago, and well, we were just it was one of those, like, he was getting old enough that, like, I had to start not kind of sugarcoating life, if that makes sense. That, like, look, the world's not all sunshine and rainbows, and we were talking about some of the realities of not everyone's going to have your best interests in mind, and you need to watch out for that. And I just it was throughout that conversation, it's just some of those themes that kind of bubbled up in that track. I remember consciously thinking, as you're thinking about that, like, man, this is a good genesis for some things I would want to say in a track. And so I those lyrics came out of that, but that's more of just kind of like if I were to say, kind of sums up Mercenary Notes. It's almost, the lyrics kind of read like sort of a survival guide of life in 2025 as a person who has to kind of live with overstimulation and things that are trying to push your buttons and wind you up. How to keep a level head throughout that is what we really wanted to I really wanted to have shine through in there. But it's a fun track. There's a lot of samples that let's see, we sampled Tombstone in that one, in a few places. So yeah, good times.
Yeah, so it seems like a whole lot of your writing process is like you get inspired by conversations and things that happen in everyday life.
Yeah, and I think some of that for me is lyrically, I tend to be like, I'm a huge outlaw country fan. I don't mean like new country. I mean, like, I love Waylon Jennings, Towns Van Zandt. I think guys like James McMurtry are some of the greatest lyricists alive right now. And what I notice with those guys is their characters and the way they write is very you can almost kind of tell the dialect and the vibe of the person, and their turns of phrase and stuff. Um, and that really is inspired how I approach lyrics. So I think when you talk about the stories of everyday people, when I read about how guys like that write songs, that's how they do it too, and they kind of bank that stuff, conversations they had here or there. Um, so that really that probably comes from that for me more than it does like industrial or kind of the genre we're making this music in itself.
Yeah, no, it's interesting a way to write and think. So when you first popped up, I don't know if everyone has ever told you this, but you kind of resemble James Labrie a little from Dream Theater.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I haven't heard that one.
Maybe,
He's
well,
not a guy. He's a good-looking guy, isn't he?
well, now if someone asks for an autograph, they're like, "Yes, I'm James Labrie from Dream Theater." So yeah, so
I
the,
can't. I have to remember what he looks like. Let's.
yeah, but only
I know.
difference
I
is
know
that
Jordan Rudess, and I definitely don't look like him. Ah, I can see it a little.
the
Got the
only
long hair and the goatee. It all depends how much I shave. If I get a big beard going, then people say I look like Whitey Morgan or something.
yeah. So I know the EP is out right now, but it's out. You can buy it on. I think I heard like see like it's for people can pre-order on CD, or is it out already physically?
Oh, it's out now. Yeah, you can go to derisioncult.bandcamp.com, our website, derisioncult.com. It's there. It's on streaming services. So yeah, it's I guess shameless plug, but we got the CDs available if you want to check those out. QR codes on the back take you to some additional content. So yeah, you can get that. That'd be the first places to go.
Okay, so I'll put the Bandcamp link so people who want to buy that. So for the
Awesome, man.
shows, what's next for the Derision Cult?
We got some shows that we're working on lining up for the fall. Touring it's a little tricky right now for bands like us, just from the economics of it, with some of the artists that we would go out with, literally just coming down to like economics with gas prices and stuff. But we're going to be announcing some of that real shortly. So I'm just excited. That's probably the thing I'm most excited about, to be honest with you, is just getting out and jamming on these tunes live. Especially like Warning Signs and Abdication Day. They're super fun to play. We did them at our label showcase last summer, and yeah, it turned out awesome.
Yeah, what's the label that you're? Is it Glitch?
Glitch Mode Recordings. Yeah, I say label, but it feels more like a collective, because it's just a whole bunch of us that are spinning out albums here and there. Cyanotic is a really big industrial band. That's Sean's main project. They just toured with KMFDM last year. That went awesome. And so yeah.
So if you have to like pick like a dream tour to like a band that would be huge to open for, what band would you like say like, yeah, that would be an awesome tour to go with?
I've had that very conversation with booking agents, and there's those like pie in the sky ones, and then there's like, what's realistic. I'd love to, I hear Prong's doing a tour. I'd love to go out with those guys. Obviously it'd be a dream come true to open Ministry shows. I think, one band that, we've talked, I think would be a lot of fun to do something with would be like Three Teeth.
Oh,
I feel it.
Yeah, I like how they really brought like industrial to the forefront, because they had some.
Mhm.
I remember they had a cover of like
That Pumped Up Kick song. Yeah.
yeah, and you know what I loved about that cover, because when you listen to that song, you're like, oh, it's so happy. You're like, no, it's fucked up. They're talking about
Yeah.
like,
Dude, it's funny you say that. I remember when that song came out, and I had that same reaction. I was like, that's a catchy little pop song.
yeah,
And then,
exactly.
like, the third time you hear it, it's like, wait a minute, is this about? Yeah. And it's so funny. My daughter discovered.
You're like, it sounds like that. When I listen to the Foster the People version, it sounds like it's like the most annoying, happiest like gun shooter ever. But the Free Thief song, they really did that greedy thing, and they really they show you how dark that song is.
Yeah, no, they did it well, and it wouldn't have been one that you would have seen coming. But it's so funny with that Foster the People version, because my daughter, she heard that and really got into it. She asked me, Dad, is this song about a kid that shoots his school?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's so happy. Well, back in the day, well, You know, back at least back in the day when the Pearl Jam released 10, at least the song
Jeremy, yeah, and
felt
had that video and
yeah. But this one, the Foster the People one, I remember at first I wasn't paying attention to the lyrics, but then I'm like listening to the lyrics and I'm like, yeah, this is fucked up.
yeah, right.
And they played that on like FM radio, like
Sure, yeah, we'd you'd hear it. I remember hearing it on. My wife's a big Sirius XM person. That's where I heard it. Yeah, man, and yeah, just I mean, it's a very well written pop song. I mean, credit where credit's due. I mean, it's a very well made tune, but
but you know
yeah,
what?
you never see it coming.
That means that you can write about any fucked up thing, but if you make it like really poppy and happy, they will play it. Because the same thing, like Third Eye Blind, Semi Shark kind of life. It's about doing
Yeah,
meth.
is it? I didn't know that. I
Yes.
I remember the song, but
And you're like, oh, you think, oh, it's about having a happy life. No, he's talking about being addicted to meth.
oh, jeez, well, I guess maybe. I always remember that song from there was a very underrated Norm Macdonald movie called Dirty Work, and that was like the theme song of it. Or it was like the song that's always playing throughout it. And that's
Yeah.
whenever I hear that song, I immediately think of it. It was Chris Farley's last movie too. But whenever I hear that song, I think of it.
Growing up here in Puerto Rico, they played a lot of like maybe pop or stuff from in Spanish. And when I listen to songs that my parents play me, a lot of songs were about like adultery. Like it was cool, like hey, like things like that. So yeah, it's pretty. And back then, yeah, I don't know, they played that stuff everywhere. So it's interesting. So, uh, and talking about covers, like, would you like if you had to like cover one song, maybe that with Derision called? Do you have like a song that you think that would be interesting to like? The most interesting thing is to take like a pop song and make it.
Yeah. You know, well, we just put out a cover. We did this kind of fan survey thing. Um, we just did a cover of Cam FDM's From Here On Out, which obviously that's pretty close to what we do. The one thing I would like to do, we got to find time to do it and pick out the songs. So I grew up in Iowa, and there was when in the '90s, kind of when I was kind of coming up and getting into music, um, there was a really vibrant sort of not quite punk, not quite metal, but the Midwest kind of hard metal scene had some really cool stuff, and I would love to pick up and stuff that never really got huge. There was a band from Springfield, Illinois called Annihilate that I was a huge fan of in high school, and I really loved, and I still listen to their stuff. They're on Fuse Records, which was kind of a tiny boutique label in Chicago. Another band called the Goodyear Pimps, who they're on the Mission Impossible 2 soundtrack. They had a sort of a semi-hit called Rocket Science. But some of those songs from growing up, there's a couple of you might have heard them in Puerto Rico, but Local H, big
Oh,
Chicago
I
band.
love LA.
There's a couple of their tunes that I would love to, but stuff like that was like really influential, kind of outside of industrial, but I would love to do some industrial takes on some of those tunes. But it's and I brought it up to Sean. It's a matter of we got to go through and kind of pick them out, put some arrangements together. But I would love to do something like that and revisit some of those Midwest kind of punk metal things that I loved in the '90s.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a cool idea, and not pick like something that's being covered to death, because there's some uh I think I've heard like enough covers of like the Depeche Mode.
Yeah.
Like, come on, pick some different bands. So then I had some fun chatting with you. So
Yeah, man. I would love to come to Puerto Rico sometime. Maybe I don't know what the live what shows are like down there, but I just God, I just love visiting. Well, I was telling you before, I you got some of the best beer for warm weather there, and I love old San Juan, love Ponce, love the rainforest. It's a beautiful place.
It's Ponce.
Ponce, what you can tell I'm from Iowa, but
Yeah,
Ponce.
I make
Um,
fun of Ponce because I don't know if they when you drove to Ponce, they have like a huge sign. Like they have like a big like a 5 letter sign, like real big letters. And when you're driving, it's like people sometimes take photos with the letters. I'm like Ponce because it's
now,
so.
God's young, it's been a while ago. I just remember the when because they have the coral there, and I just remember snorkeling is just some of the. It didn't even feel like I was on planet Earth. You
Yeah.
know, it's just gorgeous. But yeah, that's a beautiful part of the world.
Yeah. So yeah, if you come, yeah, let me know if you come here, and we have some cool shows. There's some. Well, last night I was at an Incubus concert.
Oh wow!
They started their Latin America concert here, and uh, I reminded that I saw Brandon Boyd, the 49-year-old singer, take off his shirt, and he's in great shape. I'm like, damn, I gotta do crunch.
Yeah, I guess that dude is. Yeah, I remember him as like that pretty boy when
He's
they Incubus is interesting because like before they kind of had their pop hits, like they were kind of part of that
new metal.
sort of post punk, not quite new metal scene that I'm talking
So
about.
they were like more like funky, like
Right? Yeah.
Red Hot Chili Peppers meets like new metal and alternative stuff. So yeah, they had some
Right.
stuff. Yeah, but yeah, so a lot of concerts here. So before I let you go, Dave, anything you'd like to say to the fans before we go?
Yeah. Just thank you for anyone who's checked out Mercenary Notes Part Two. If you haven't, just as we were saying, you can go on Bandcamp and check out what we got. We've got some animated videos we made, but we'll be announcing shows here pretty soon, so stay tuned.
Yeah. So there you go, Couchers. Support if you're looking for some new industrial metal acts to listen to. There you have Derision Cult. It's out now. So until next time, Couchers, this is Hector, the Shield Dude on a Couch, and I'll see you all right here on the couch. Thank you and goodbye.